sorry, my dog. So that's why the North Korean economy is getting worse. And but it doesn't mean that the government didn't do anything, but they actually did a lot of plans. So they made a lot of plans. From 1954 to 1956, the 3-year economy plan, and 5-year economy plan, first 7-year economy plan, 6-year economy plan, second 7-year economy plan, third year economy plan. So I don't want to show, I mean, I didn't want to show at first, but I thought it's better to show every aspect here. So you can, I mean, I divided into three sectors: national income growth rate, industrial production growth rate, grain production growth rate. And the goal is 20%, about 20%, but performance was 30%. So if you look at third economy plan era, you can see the performance is sometimes more than over than goal, right? But if you look at from 1970 to 60, it's still fine up to 1960. But 1961, from 1961, from first 7-year economy plan, the performance is getting worse. I mean, it's worse than the goal, right? So as you can see, it never. I mean, this one is maybe over the goal. So industrial production growth rate is the North Korea, what North Korea care most. So that sector maybe they achieved goal. Sometimes they achieve more than the goal, but other sector it's hard to find except for this era. It's hard to find, right? What's the key point? That's what I wanted to explain. Turning point. So this is the I summarize the characteristics of North Korea. So first, like other socialist countries, the centralized economic planning was adopted, but a more strongly centralized system was pursued. So it's more centralized than Soviet Union and China even. It's because I think that North Korea is smaller than other socialist country, right? It's much smaller. So it's possible to have more centralized system than other country. And second, unlike the former Soviet Union, the emphasis has been on self-reliance. So the self-reliance is very ironic system because they can sustain itself. The North Korea can sustain itself because it's too small to do that. But still, they keep emphasizing the self-reliance in everywhere, not only economy but also politics. Third, the priority has been given to mental stimulation over material incentives. That's why eventually all socialists have been collapsed. So does North Korea. The priority, but it's a little bit different from Soviet Union because Soviet Union adopted a little bit of material incentives to the people, but not North Korea. North Korea just focus on spirit, mental stimulation. That's the characteristics that North Korea has. And I explained the Kapsan faction, and then 1961 is kind of turning point. I showed the table here, right? So you can see that from 1961, things has been changed in North Korea. So we call that is a turning point for North Korea. So at so 1961, a new 7-year economic plan started, and then this new 7 economic plan that should have allowed for continued industrialization and modernization of the North Korean economy. That was actually the main goal of North Korea has. So industrialization and modernization, and furthermore, military power of Kim Il Sung and start of the unambiguous diversification of economy resource to support a strong and independent military. So, as I explained, they spent a lot of money for industrial, I mean, the heavy and chemical industry. It's because of this strong and independent military. And unambiguous diversification of economic resource means, as I explained, all the resources were invested or spent for investment of this heavy and chemical industry. Light industry and agriculture were brushed aside. So, but agriculture is directly related to the quality of life for North Korean people, but agriculture wasn't emphasized for under the Kim Il Sung regime. And independent military as its top priority, and economic dependence on foreign forces entail political subordination. So that's why they said that do they can be dependent on the foreign aid. That's what they said. But in reality, as the book said, actually they borrowed a lot of money from foreign countries and they got a lot of aid from foreign countries. But still, they inside of the country they emphasize economic dependence actually means political subordination. That's what they uh, emphasize. In North Korea, I want you to focus on the nuclear program. But before that, I want to emphasize here's one thing that like South Korea, North Korea also started this economy plan. They made the specific goals like that, but it completely failed because as I explained, they were imbalanced in terms of industry. But you should actually notice that South Korea did exactly the same thing, right? They actually established a goal and they specify each sector, well, how much they will produce, but they focus at the time, they focus how much product they will export to the foreign country. That's the main differences. So South Korea care more on trade than spending in domestic economy. But it's actually completely vice versa than North Korea. And I want you to explain a little on nuclear program. So in the book, they mentioned a little when the North Korea started to nuclear program, but I wanted to give a little bit more details on that. So North Korea started to launch its nuclear program, but actually the books say they started like 1960s, but the plan was actually started in 1950. December. The regime established Atomic Energy Research Institute and Academy of Sciences. So South Korean government they keep saying like we can't help North Korea because if we help North Korea and that money will all goes to making nuclear weapons. That is actually partially true. Atomic Energy Research Institute and Academy of Science actually spend a lot of money to launch its nuclear programs, and these days they have another research institute for cyber hacking and terror in North Korea, and they spend a lot of money for that too. So we will definitely handle that topics too, but let's just focus on nuclear programs. I still remember when I was college student in 2000 when I was third grade or fourth grade. I can't remember exactly when, but I took the class of Russian politics from professor who studied in Russia for a long time. And then he actually was an expert in North Korea area too. And then I asked the question whether is there any whether the North Korea has nuclear weapons or not. But he said that we are not sure whether North Korea has a nuclear weapons. That was in 2000. But he's saying that we guess that North Korea can have at least one nuclear weapons in their country in 2000. That was actually 2000. So that means the North Korea took a lot of years to have its own nukes, right? And then we didn't notice for a long time. I mean, we noticed quite like 1970s because we make the North Korea to join NPT, but anyway, so it started to 1952 by making the research institute, and then they established a cooperative agreement with the Soviet Union. At the time, even though they get rid of, I mean, there was Kapsan faction at the time, but they were heavily dependent on Soviet Union in terms of nuclear programs. They wanted to actually ask help to China, but China refused. And China didn't want North Korea has nuclear weapons because they say that it may be directly to target to their country. So North Korea started to begin to send scientists and technicians to Soviet Union for the training, and then the Soviet Union gave information, know-hows related to the atomic energy, nuclear weapons, for these North Korean scientists. In 1959, North Korea and the Soviet Union signed an agreement on a peaceful use of nuclear energy. But that's if from the U.S. perspective, actually, this is not peaceful use of nuclear energy, right, at all. But the Kim Il Sung wanted to have a nuclear weapon for a long time because he thinks that if he had nuclear weapons on Korean War, he could win over. That's what he thinks. So that having nuclear weapons is his long wishes to accomplish. So that's why, I mean, he started to, as you can see, during the war, right? And then right after war, he started to send scientists to the Soviet Union. And the Soviet helped build the reactor at Yongbyon. And China conducted its first nuclear test in October 1964. So China also started to have nuclear weapons, and then we believe that China could do it with the help of the Soviet Union as well. So the Soviet Union actually could help both countries in terms of nuclear weapons. And Kim Il Sung retained control of the nuclear program despite operational and administrative oversight from the cabinet and the Academy of Science. And North Korea's nuclear program developed it largely independently with little foreign assistance. So at first, the Soviet Union helped, but later on, they started to develop nuclear weapons independently. After China's first nuclear test in 1964, Kim Il Sung requested nuclear technology from Beijing, but the request was refused. So China didn't actually wanted that North Korea has nuclear weapons. So that's why the Soviet Union was only choice for North Korea to ask help. So we are not sure whether Kim Il Sung largely independently developed nuclear programs, but it's clear that Kim Il Sung has strong will to develop nuclear weapons, and then China rejected his technology help. That's why the Soviet was the only country to ask. In 1964, North Korea began to pursue fission experiments after Yongbyon IRT 2000 research reactor reached a power rating of 2 MW. Actually, I don't know what does it mean exactly, but I want to emphasize from 1960, North Korea started to take the test for nuclear weapons. In 1970s, North Korean engineer had expanded the IRT 2000 reactor using indigenous technology and acquired plutonium processing technology from the USSR. So the most important resources for nuclear weapon is actually plutonium, right? So plutonium processing technology is kind of key technology for nuclear weapons. So South Korea also have plutonium, and then we also have a skill and technology, plutonium reprocessing technology as well. So if we want to, we can actually make nuclear weapons right away without any help. But in 19, I mean, South also Park Chung-hee wanted to have nuclear weapons, but because of the U.S. opposition, U.S. didn't want that South Korea have nuclear weapons, so U.S. didn't allow Park Chung-hee to have nuclear weapons. But Park Chung-hee wanted to actually have nuclear weapons without knowing the U.S., but he failed. 1977, North Korea signed a trilateral safeguard agreement with International Atomic Energy Association and the USSR to bring the IRT 2000 reactor and a critical assembly in Yongbyon under IEA safeguards with the USSR included since they supply the reactor's fuel. So the nuclear program actually begin to 1952, and then we believe that that they started to take the test 1960s and 1970s. They almost have the capacity to have nuclear weapons. And I will keep explaining nuclear weapons, and then because of nuclear weapons, they started to their foreign policy as a blink policy. That means they are in the since they have, I mean, the North Korea has leverage to make the U.S., Japan, China, Russia, Korea on the table. They can actually set the table like that way just because they have nuclear weapons. And many people, the Western society wanted that North Korea give up its nuclear weapons, but we should actually know that they started quite early, and then they have their nuclear programs quite a long time, and then we should actually notice why nuclear weapon from the very beginning North Korea wanted to have nuclear weapons, and then how this will has been changed since Kim Il Sung died and Kim Jong Il died. And then I want you to talk about the attempt by North Korea to assassinate South Korean leader. There were several actually events were raised by the North Korea. One of them is Cheongwade, that's the Blue House assault incident. It resulted in 32 deaths and 52 injuries. So let's look at what happened. On January 13, 1968, Kim Jong-tae, the director of Reconnaissance Bureau of North Korea, North Korean Ministry of People's Armed Force, secretly ordered 31 members of North Korean Unit 102-24 blew up the Blue House and bring the head of South Korean President Park Chung-hee. So that means the Kim Jong-tae, he's a director, and he actually secretly ordered 31 North Korean, should I say military, army, anyways, members to get rid of Park Chung-hee. So also assassinations by Park. The North Korea thinks that if we get rid of Park Chung-hee, then the North Korea can be weakened, and then North Korea can have South Korea anytime they wanted. So they wanted to actually get rid of Park Chung-hee. So that's why they sent 31 people to South Korea. that's actually real. And following this order, the 31 Special Forces members of Unit 124, dressed in South Korean military uniforms and armed with some submarine guns, successfully crossed the DMZ at midnight on January 18th. Utilizing the cover of night to depart from Kaesong, thus infiltrating South Korea. So they actually succeeded to cross over DMZ and they arrived in South Korea, all 31 special forces. So if you watch a movie, then you can see like very handsome North Korean guy. They fight really well and they were well trained like that way. And they got this idea because of this unit 124, so special forces. Midnight on January 18th, they successfully crossed the military line, and but the problem is they actually cut. They were almost nearby Blue House, but the South Korean army actually noticed. So during the agent's duty, when the police spot check revealed their identity, the assailant threw at checkpoint of the officers and fired indiscriminately with submarine guns, also throwing grenades at a passing city bus, causing the death or injury of many civilians returning home. So they actually their identity was revealed by Korean police. So I mean they resisted. But during those catching up or catching this one unit 124, and they actually resist. And during those times, they actually use guns, and that's why there was a civilian death. The military and police immediately established emergency alert status and deployed to the scene, capturing Kim Shin-jo and killing 5 in mop-up operation. So they could succeed catching Kim Shin-jo, and then they killed 5 other special military forces. A joint military police search operation was conducted throughout Gyeonggi province, resulting in 28 killed by January 31st. The operation concluded with the assumption that remaining 2 had fled. So there were 31 people and then 28 were killed and then 2 people were fled. As a result of this incident, there were 32 fatalities, including Jongno Station Chief Choi Kyu-sik, Colonel Lee Ik-soo, military personnel, and the civilians, with a total of 52 injured. So it was a quite shocking event for South Korean, right? Because they think that North Korea will not invade again, but they invade like this way. But the weird thing is, after that, we Koreans also made Unit 684. So if you watch the movie 실미도, we call this 실미도 unit. 실미도 is the some island located in Korea, and South Korea also secretly organized a special force unit known as Unit 684. 실미도 unit, another word, to plan retaliatory attack against North Korea. President Park Chung-hee directed the creation of retaliation units within each military service, and the Air Force Intelligence commanded the establishment of Unit 209 in April of the same year. Unit 209 was created to match the number of 31 individuals who had raided in the Blue House, aiming to assassinate Kim Il-sung, the head of state of Korea, North Korea. The unit was given the cover name 684 after the year and month of its creation. So the Park Chung-hee was so angry about this, so he wanted to retaliate. So that's why he make a 실미도. That's unit 684. So if you watch the movie, you notice that these old people were killed. It's because In 1971, members of military unit, distressed by severe training and poor conditions, and instigated rebellion. So they escaped Shilmido Island, aiming to head toward Incheon, but were suppressed by South Korean military. During this confrontation, most of the unit members were killed, and the incident was kept secret in South Korea for a long time. Later, this event became widely known through movies and books. So, Silmido, if you watch the movie, and then they were actually wanting to get out of that place because the training was too much, and then the condition was the poor. So that's why they do not want to listen to the government. So that's why they wanted to actually escape the Silmido Island, but they failed. And then it was secret quite a long time, but later the event became really famous because of the movie Silmido. So that's what Park Jong-il did. So there was no official agreement between North and South Korea, but there was a conflict like this way. So after the war, that actually was very first uh, attempt to kill South Korea leader by North Korea. I think today is done for this, and then I will see you next week. Thank you for listening.